This program is brought to you by cable franchise fees and generous donations from viewers like you.
Welcome to the Amherst Weekly Report from Amherst Media. I'm Asia Reed.
And I'm Abby Gracie. UMass Amherst established a Title IX Student Advisory Task Force, according to an email Chancellor Subaswamy sent to the UMass student body on November 4th. Their goals are to, quote, provide input and guidance regarding policies, procedures, and education efforts related to sexual misconduct. Carrie Tillett, Associate Vice Chancellor for Equal Opportunity and Title IX Coordinator, will lead the task force. 9 student appointees will accompany her. The group will serve as a bridge between students and administration, so emerging issues are always known and addressed. The student appointees will also continue to raise awareness about sexual misconduct on college campuses, specifically the UMass Amherst campus, to other members of the student body and administration.
A hefty solar panel project is being proposed for a section of over 100 acres of land on Shutesbury Road. The Conservation Commission by ASD Shutesbury, Massachusetts, is suggesting the project. The project will be built south of the existing homes and on 3 wooded parcels. The goal is to harvest the sun's energy on 3% of the acres of land. Last week, the Conservation Commission held a meeting regarding the initial hearing and planning. Thomas Reedy, an attorney with Bacon Wilson PC of Amherst, stated that the solar panel project does comply with the town's wetland bylaws and the Wetland Protection Act. However, the Zoning Board of Appeals will be required to give a special permit to the Commission before the project begins.
A new 17-unit townhouse development will begin with a hearing at 3 p.m. on November 15th in front of the local Historic District Commission. Each townhouse would be 2 stories and would cover a 2.2 acre of land on the corner of Fearing Street and Sunset Avenue. The project was designed by Kunriddle Architects of Amherst and was proposed by attorney Thomas Reed. Kunriddle Architects will have some townhouses connected to each other with a parking lot in between them. The houses currently at 164 and 174 Sunset Ave would be replaced by the units. Property owner Fearing Sunset LLC and its manager Barry Roberts purchased the lots last December for $1.07 million. The hearing before the local Historic District Commission will decide whether they want the existing houses on those lots to be relocated or torn down. The Commission also needs to decide whether or not any of the homes consist of any historical value, according to Amherst planner Ben Berger.
Amherst shelter Craig's Place has begun its preparation for the transition into the winter season. The shelter opened 2 days later than in prior years due to the church being a voting site for the town's election, but is now open to those in need. 23 beds will be set up each night in the parish hall at Emmanuel Lutheran Church on North Pleasant Street to house those in need of a place to stay warm. Guests will be served meals from the kitchen and will be able to take the food back on trays to their beds. Several changes have been made this year, as Craig's Place will open daily around 6 p.m. and serve guests until 7 a.m. instead of being open around the clock, which was last year's winter's operational method at the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House. Rachel Weiss, site manager for the Craig's Place shelter, said that those who come one night will be assured a bed the following night if they arrive by 9 p.m. According to Weiss, the shelter has enough staff to cover all the shifts and will be able to have at least 3 employees working at all times, but they still are hiring. Volunteers can sign up at www.craigsdoors.org/volunteer, and donation inquiries can be made by emailing managers at craigsdoors.org.
Hadley's Howard Johnson Hotel is in consideration to be demolished and replaced by a new office building. The hotel has remained at 401 Russell Street since its opened in 1966 and has undergone several renovations since, but the most recent was over 20 years ago. Hampshire Hospitality Group CEO J. Curtis Shumway said during a planning board meeting last week that no definite decisions have been made yet. However, a proposed plan showed a 40,500 square foot, 3-story office building to take over the spot. The area would see several changes, including the elimination of one of the 2 curb cuts from Route 9 and a newly seated and landscaped parking lot. while the new entrance to the building would face the parking area behind it. If this plan moves forward, Shumway said the office space would likely have a similar design to the red brick buildings on Atwood Drive in Northampton, which were also built following the demolition of a hotel. Though there are concerns about how eliminating the amount of rooms in the area may impact the hotel's peak seasons, such as the fall, Shumway believes that there is not a high enough demand for the amount of hotels that are currently open and running. Claudia Pasmani, Executive Director of the Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce, also expressed concern for both the loss of a hotel, but emphasized the potential positive that the new space could bring. She said, quote, "A transition of office space could produce new opportunities for more employment and possibly higher paying jobs, and can be seen as a great opportunity."
The Amherst Town Council has rejected the proposed Lincoln Avenue parking ban. Free parking on the weekdays will remain intact on a certain segment of Lincoln Avenue. One town councilor stated that it was elitist to ban parking for most of the road. Some on the council stated that there should be only a ban during the academic school year due to the busy traffic flow on the road. The council ended up in a 6-6 deadlock vote regarding the academic school year ban. District 3 Councilor Dorothy Pam represents the neighborhood and has seen concerning safety issues firsthand. Pam stated she has seen cars get into accidents, take the mirrors off of other cars, and issues with people being able to leave their driveways. Some councilors argued that the council was acting prematurely on the decision because UMass's plan to add extra dorm rooms near the road is still up in the air. If dorm rooms are added, there may be an overflow of traffic. As for now, parking is still permitted.
The former principal of the Fort River Elementary School, Michelle Hernandez, resigned last month, leaving the school system to find a new interim principal and assistant principal for the remainder of the 2021 to 2022 school year. Tammy Sullivan-Daly and Julio Fernandez will now assume the positions. Sullivan-Daly has been with Fort River Elementary since 2003 as a special education teacher. Fernandez has been with the school since 2017 as a district translator and paraeducator. In 2019, he became a special education teacher at Amherst Regional Middle School. Superintendent Michael Morris announced the changes to the families through a letter.
A bronze horse sculpture that has been stolen from a gravesite at Wildwood Cemetery has been found and returned. Amherst police recovered the sculpture from a pawn shop in Springfield following an investigation into the theft after it was first reported stolen on October 19th. The horse stands 4 feet tall and 5 feet long atop a black granite pedestal and typically rests at the site of the late Amherst couple Franklin Martin Lowe and Deborah Sugar Baker Diggs. Inscribed on the pedestal were their names and dates of birth and death. Lowe served as president of the former Becker College in Worcester, previously serving as the second dean of the Tufts University School of Veterinary Medicine. Diggs was a professor of English at Tufts and also published 4 poetry books. Jonathan Clay, a member of the Wildwood Cemetery Trustees Board, wrote in an email that, quote, "Among all of the varied, personal, poignant, artful, and poetic memorials at Wildwood, placed since its founding over 130 years ago, this may be the most beloved of all." According to Rebecca Frick, the general manager of Wildwood Cemetery, the cemetery is currently working with the family to reinstall the horse to the stone base. Police Chief Scott Livingston said the investigation remains active, though a suspect has been identified.
The Robert Frost Trail in Amherst will now be extended into South Hadley. An anonymous private donor is donating $20,000 to the Kestrel Land Project, which will be aiding in lengthening the trail. The Kestrel Group is calling the plan a revival of the trail due to the plans to replace a bridge and upkeep the 25 miles of existing trails. By next spring, the paths will be blazed and signs will be made and installed. This plan, originally introduced in the early 80s, was for a 42-mile-long hiking trail. The inspiration behind the trail was to honor the 20th anniversary of the death of poet Robert Frost, hence the name of the path. The trail is centered on the location of the very home that Frost once resided in, next to the Amethyst Brook. Many nearby establishments are in support and granted permission of the trail expansion, including Amherst College, the New England Biking Association, and Peckham Industries Corporation. And now here's Tyler Baraldi with the latest news and sports.
Thanks, Abby. As has become a weekly tradition, UMass Minutemen football faced defeat yet again last Saturday, losing 35-22 against the Rhode Island Rams. Running back Ellis Merriweather was the star of the show for UMass, rushing for 118 yards on 30 carries and scoring a touchdown in the process. though his efforts did little to stop the Rams' scoring onslaught. Despite putting up a relatively respectable performance in the loss, the team still clearly needed an overhaul, and as a result, head coach Walt Bell and defensive coordinator Tommy Restivo were released soon after the contest. Bell's tenure with the squad was far from successful, amassing a 2-23 win-loss record, with all 23 of those losses coming by a margin of at least 2 scores. Restivo's defense did little to help these struggles, as 5 of the team's 9 games this season resulted in losses by at least 38 points, this fact without a doubt playing a large role in his release. As such, the search for the head coach of the future is on, and UMass will surely expend all resources to prove that Minutemen football is to be taken seriously, regardless of what their record has indicated. In the meantime, the Minutemen will have to attempt to keep their drama in the locker room as they prepare for a home game against the UMaine Black Bears tomorrow at noon. Amherst College similarly faced defeat this weekend, facing their worst loss of the season, losing 49-7 against the Trinity Bantams. The Mammoths were utterly helpless on offense, being held from the end zone until the final minutes of the game, where they found their only score of the contest. The Bantams' offense was just as dominant as their defense, seeing quarterback Spencer Fetter toss 5 touchdowns on the day, dismantling an otherwise solid Mammoth secondary. This loss will have to be placed on the back burner, however, as tomorrow will mark the biggest little game in America, as undefeated rival Williams College comes to town to continue a storied tradition of gridiron warfare. With a history dating back to 1884, this annual contest will have all the intensity of a national championship and will take place at noon at Pratt Field. Despite the football team's seemingly endless losing streak, this week marked a momentous occasion for UMass athletics, as basketball season finally began and Minute Women's Soccer found themselves in a championship battle. Starting with basketball, the UMass Minutemen opened their season at home on Wednesday against the UMBC Retrievers. Starting things off with a solid 77-60 victory, led by 16-point scoring efforts from forward Trent Buttrick and guard TJ Weeks. Following this win, the Minutemen will head to New Haven to play Yale tonight at 8 p.m. Minute Women Basketball found similar success this week, opening their season with a dominant performance over Central Connecticut State, winning 87-50. Guard Sydney Taylor led the way for the Minute Women, dropping 16 points on 7 for 11 shooting alongside 4 other teammates whose figures similarly reached double digits, including forward Sam Breen, who dropped 15. The Minute Women will hope to maintain their momentum as they move on to play Harvard tonight in the Mullen Center at 5 p.m. Minute Women's Soccer found themselves in an A-10 championship game against St. Louis over the weekend, though unfortunately this would end in defeat as UMass would fall 4-1 to cap off an exceptional season of play, with freshman Ashley Lamont scoring UMass's lone goal in the contest. Nonetheless, the squad has a lot to be proud of and build upon in the future, as this marked their first championship contest since 2011, and hopefully only the first of many to come. UMass Minuteman hockey continued to find success over the weekend, beating Providence back-to-back on Friday and Saturday to propel themselves to a 6-2 record, maintaining an undefeated streak that's lasted since opening weekend. Friday's contest proved to be a battle of defense, finishing with a 1-0 score with freshman Scott Morrow drilling the nail into Providence's coffin. Saturday's contest, on the other hand, was a display of dominance on the road, seeing UMass win 5-1 in enemy territory. 5 different players scored on the night, leading head coach George Carvel to his 100th win and ensuring that the Minutemen remain an absolute force to be reckoned with on the ice. They'll go on to play BU in Boston tonight at 7 o'clock and tomorrow in the Mullen Center at 7:30. Back to you, Abby.
Thanks, Tyler, and thank you for tuning into the Amherst Weekly Report with Amherst Media. I'm Abby Gracie.
And I'm Asia Reed. We will see you again at the same time next week.